Great. Welcome, everybody. I think this is one of the smallest groups in the largest spaces I've ever spoken to. Hopefully some more people will join us as we go along. I don't know whether many of you are familiar with the Berlin School of Creative Leadership. I don't want to do a huge pitch for the school, but just so you know basically who we are. We're a business school kind of born out of the industry for the industry, originally founded by Michael Conrad of Leo Burnett about 10 years ago. And we're known for our executive MBA, which takes place in 5 locations around the world. We have a great alumni that's been through that MBA over the years who are now dotted all over the world running amazing creative companies and so on. So that kind of built our reputation. 3 years ago, we started running custom programs, our executive education department. Increasingly, that's evolving and changing, as you can imagine, with the changes that are happening in the market. So we're gradually shifting to focus more and more on innovation and tech topics and transformation and value and all of the real current topics at the moment. So this talk today is going to take you through one of the topics that's dear to our hearts at the moment. Hopefully there'll be a little bit of time at the end for questions, and if anybody wants to ask me more about the school, happy to have a chat with you afterwards or whatever. Okay, let's get back to my opening slide. So I want to start off with this kind of tricky question, and it's, why would anybody want to do business with you? Increasingly, this is a question that a lot of creative agencies and organizations are grappling with at the moment. Because this drives the idea of, what is your worth? I mean, this is a human fundamental characteristic that all of us need to have a sense of worth to drive our engagement and our commitments and so on. And obviously, this translates into our organizations. And I guess the key question around this, what is our worth, is do we want to be who we want to be, or do we want to be who our clients want us to be? So it's kind of trying to balance our sense of worth about ourselves as an organization and the kind of work we want to do with what our clients expect of us. And that, of course, is evolving and has shifted in recent years and so on, but it drives everything we do. It shapes potentially our business models, our value propositions, etc., etc. So I want to explore a little bit how that's been evolving in recent years. So what we're talking about, I guess, is the relationship between authenticity and adaptability. And this relates to people as well as organizations. So for us, as people in our agency, what is kind of dear to us in our organization that maybe drives us at the core of what we do are things like our values, our vision, great work, awards, maybe, if that's a part of your aspiration. And these kind of shape how we want to position ourselves and be seen and so on and so forth. And we balance that with what we think they want from us, or we try to balance it. And that can be ROI, insights, revenue, cost savings, and trust, maybe. And these circles are kind of sliding from side to side in a way. At times we may be driving more of the us part of that. We may have a strong aspiration to present ourselves in a certain way. Obviously, the startups that are trying to create a sense of value or a sense of worth are really strong on this side. This is what's very often driving them as they form and shape their new business. But on the other side, we have to do some of this on the right-hand side to actually make money and actually drive value for our organizations and our people and so on. And I guess the combination of the two gives us that purpose, our reason for being as a business organization, how we balance those two factors. So in a way, we're moving increasingly into the world of the sort of more hybrid type agency, where we're trying to be more sensitive to client needs on the one hand, but still trying to be us as best we can as a creative organization. So let's look at them a little bit, because what the clients want and client expectations are increasingly shaping and driving the creative world that we're working in. I did a really interesting program for IBM many years ago, and we were lucky enough to have 30 recently retired C-level executives working with us to help us shape some new value propositions for the organization. And we asked all of them what they would like to see if they were being presented to with a value proposition from a supplier, an agency, or whoever that might be, presenting a value proposition to them. What's the thing they would like to see on the first slide? What do you think the answer was? We got one answer from all of them consistently. What do they want to see on the first slide? Somebody. This is stuff we have to know because we're presenting to these people all the time. The consistent answer we got, show me the money. I want to see a number as early as possible. Those of you who are familiar with this business model canvas, this way of looking at how an organization works and how their business model is shaped, will know that at the bottom of the business model canvas there are two boxes. One is cost and one is revenue. These are the only two things that senior business people are interested in, and they need to see that as early as possible. So this somehow seems miles away from the world of sexy creativity and innovation and so on and so forth. So this is the start of potential challenges for us as creative organizations. The first thing we have to consider when we're dealing with this fact that they're looking for this magic number all the time is that C-level executives have a kind of filter when we're working with them in the way they assess value, if you like. The first of those filters is they're basically looking for reasons not to do business with you, not reasons to do business with you. They don't like spending money. So they're trying to filter you out all the time when you're presenting to a senior business person. They're looking for reasons not to spend because it's safer. It's less risk for them. They make less mistakes. In fact, one of those C-level executives I spoke to, chatting in the evening over a few beers, kind of loosened up a little bit, and he said, you know, most C-level people nowadays are only in position for 3 or 4 years, and then they kind of move sideways to another senior position, maybe in a new company, and so on. And because of that, they hate making decisions. It's safer to avoid decision making. It's better to make no decision than to say yes or no, because it's risk-free. So not only are they trying to filter you out, they don't like making decisions. So we're looking for really compelling reasons to act that appear also to be risk-free. So this is almost the polar opposite of the world we aspire to work in terms of innovation and disruption, new products, new solutions, because there is inherent risk within that. So we're kind of in a catch-22 situation. Clients are coming to us and say, you know, show me something new, show me something nobody's ever done, something dynamic, something amazing, but tell me you know the ROI and the benefit and that you can measure it, which is almost impossible because it's never been done before. So this is a constant dilemma that we're in, if you like. So what's going on in our clients' heads? This is, I hate big complicated models, and we tend to avoid them at the school, but I want to share this little one with you. So this is how the client thinks when they're buying your services as an organization, okay? This is what's going on the business side, okay? So they have a compelling reason to act, whatever the business driver is for them. They assign owners, define the objectives of that particular tactical activity in the organization. They initiate a project, evaluate some options, define a potential solution, agree the contracts and the legal stuff, implement it, measure the results, and then off they go again in this continuous cycle of hiring suppliers, getting support, etc., etc. Now, we can play in different parts of this area depending on how we're perceived by the client, okay? This little green area here starts when the client is evaluating their options. Which agency shall we use to produce this campaign for us? They're evaluating which agency, and it exits at the implementation stage, once the job is done. If you do this, you're merely a vendor. You're simply a provider of a service for them, and that's it. If you're lucky and you've been good at that and you have a reasonable track record and that's building a certain level of trust within the organization, you can play in this yellow part of the whole circle, and this is the preferred supplier. So you're the vendor of choice because they like you, they've done work with you before or whatever. So you're in a little bit of a bigger space. Maybe you're first in the queue when they evaluate the options as to who we want to work with because they like you, in effect, and you maybe exit a little bit later in the process. If you're a stage further than that, you could be seen as more of a solution provider. Through working with you, interacting with you, they see that you can potentially shape the solution more than just giving them what they ask for, and then you become a solution provider. And you can see, you might even get involved slightly before the project is initiated, because they respect your expertise and so on and so forth. Finally, though, you could play in the whole circle, and this is what's often referred to as the trusted advisor. And I think what's particularly interesting about being in the whole circle, in more of a partnership with the potential client, is that you can even give them compelling reasons to act. And this is, of course, the space that many creative organizations, be they innovation providers, or what a particular aspect of that they're working in, are aspiring to play. They're trying to compel their clients to act and behave in certain ways, and then guiding and supporting them through this whole process. So there's a determining factor. There are several, but the biggest driver, and the clue is in the name, for how much you can play in this space is trust. Okay, so if we're going to be effective in this space with our clients, they have to trust us to do certain things. This is the good old famous trust equation that's been around for years. It's a human thing, so surprise, surprise, it hasn't changed. But the way we work with it is evolving, and this evolution is important for us. So first of all, it says that trust is built with a combination of reliability, credibility, and intimacy, and it's destroyed by self-orientation, typically. So where does the reliability come from? Somebody tell me. If you want to appear reliable to maybe a new client you're pitching to or whatever, how do you show that reliability in your presentation? Anybody? Somebody show me you're awake and you didn't have too much wine last night. No? Sorry? Being competent? Okay. So being competent is a kind of historical thing. Once you've shown them that you're competent, they believe you to be more reliable. So this is what you're describing is actually track record. That demonstrates your competence. And most reliability issues that drive trust are historical. You did what you said you were going to do. And it's the same with humans as well as organizations. With your leader, if you're the leader of a team and you're trying to build trust, how reliable you are doing what you say you're going to do in front of your team, and a track record of doing that will drive trust in your team members. It works just the same. Okay? So it's all that historical stuff. In your pitches, it's your case studies, it's your references, it's all those kind of things that you show them to say, you can trust us, we've done amazing stuff. That old adage, no one got fired for hiring IBM because we've done so much stuff in the past. You can trust us. Okay? Credibility. by contrast, where does credibility come from? This is the really crucial one at the moment, and it's again where we got one answer from our CXOs. How do you show yourselves to be credible in front of your clients? Don't worry, I'm not going to push you too hard. The one answer you get if you ask a senior business person, how do I look credible when I'm standing in front of you, pitching to you or whatever, is show me you understand my business. That's the only way to be credible when you're pitching to a client. All the others are reliability. Okay? You understand my business, you understand my pains, maybe some of those are personal, maybe some of those are more organizational, but you understand my business and my industry. You're instantly credible, okay? And it's the reason the McKinseys and the Accentures and so on are invading this space, and I'll come to that later, because they are amazingly good at this, okay? A lot of research is showing us at the moment they are so good at doing this at the moment that working in this space, because they can demonstrate the ROI and the benefits in the business language of the client. They don't really care what the content is. It's so easy for these guys to sell. Not only that, they'll also rip apart your proposals from a financial point of view and so on. This is how they can be competitive. So credibility comes from showing you understand my business. Intimacy is an interesting one. It's the human aspect. It's much, much easier for us than it used to be. Mainly because of social media. What's the first thing you do before you're going to go and meet someone to pitch? You check them out on social media, find out what they're interested in, so you can be intimate, so you can build rapport, etc. with that person. And that helps us build trust. Oh, this guy likes the same kind of thing. My friend here who I've met today is a fellow surfer, so we kind of trust each other a little bit more than we did before. There's that level of intimacy that builds immediately because of that. So all of this is destroyed or undermined by self-orientation, okay? So self-orientation is pretty straightforward. Self-orientation is look at me. This is your first 10 slides in your pitch talking about your amazing company and the fantastic work and all the awards you've won. I don't really care if I'm a senior business person. I don't want to see a one slide in your PowerPoint with logos of all your clients. That's of no interest to me at all. Okay, I know you're an important company and a big company and have done lots of successful work, otherwise you wouldn't be in my office. Okay, so self-orientation is very damaging and it manifests itself in lots of ways. Okay, so this is pretty established. We know this is going on, but the way it's changing is more interesting for us. 20, 30 years ago, maybe more, business people, our clients in all industry areas, were typically making their choice to buy, mitigating risk. They're trying to filter us out, as I said before, on the reliability part. Okay? So, show me you can do this kind of work, and maybe awards and all those things were part of that. They were buying on the basis of it's reliable, it's safe to work with you. Now it's completely shifted. They're buying on your credibility. They still want you to be seen to be reliable and intimate and so on, but fundamentally it's the credibility that's driving those choices to buy your services. Your perception of worth, how we started off, is based on how credible you can be in front of them. And that may develop into reliability as your track record grows with them and so on and so forth. So this is what's really shaping the way we're working or aspiring to work at the moment, many of the challenges we face, and we believe at the Berlin School, many of your potential opportunities at the moment. So what if we don't? Okay, I spent, 10 minutes on the internet plucking out these quotes. We all know, and it's being reported everywhere, that everybody is moving in on this space, whatever exactly this space is. I think of it as kind of creative business. Everybody wants a piece of this. The traditional consultancies, buying people, they're buying creative organizations, they're trying to upskill within their own organizations to work in this space. The tech companies are working in this space. Everybody wants a piece of this action at the moment. So really, we have no choice but to re-engineer our organizations to be more effective in this space. Otherwise, these people are going to steal our lunch, okay? And I just popped on the internet last night, and I don't know whether you've seen this one. I saw that one, which is a bit scary. I don't know whether any of you saw that in the news yesterday. I don't know whether it's fake news or not, but if it is, it's pretty, even as fake news, it's pretty scary. So there are huge changes going on, and we need to be thinking about our clients' perception of our worth and how we can affect that if we're going to be effective in the way we work. I had a masterclass in Cannes last year given with our group we were working with by Fernando Vega Olmos, who's an extremely well-known Latin American creative. And he talked about a guy delivering melons, was his way of describing this. And I won't be able to tell this story nearly as eloquently as an Argentinian could, who lived in a little village in Argentina for many years. But what he basically said in his story with the melons was, there's a farmer driving to market with his truck full of melons on a very bumpy road. And increasingly, he's hitting potholes in the road and rocks and bumps and so on. And when this happens, many of the melons get thrown out of the truck. But at the same time, many of the melons at the bottom kind of rise to the surface as everything gets stirred around and potentially become the melons that get sold first at the end. And what he was trying to say was, out of these times of potential crisis also comes opportunity. So what's the real opportunity here? If all this is happening, this kind of doom and gloom that people are talking about, where's the real opportunity for agencies in particular to play in this space and other creative organizations that are focusing on creative business? So for us, it all comes down to brand evolution, the opportunities and the challenges we're facing. So we started off with products and services. So products and services were just, there was a need, somebody recognized the need, produced a product or a service to fulfill that need. Life was simple in those days. If you wanted to dig a hole and someone made a spade, you'd buy the spade and dig the hole with it. It was nice and easy. But then somebody had the smart idea of brands. Let's bundle a load of these things together and it'll be easier for us to sell them. If there's a perceived value in the collection of items, that makes it easier to sell. So the notion of brands was invented. Then we had this thing turn up called brand promise. And this is an extension, if you like, of the notion of a brand. This is where I can expect something extra. There's a promise attached. It'll make me look good if I drive this car, or it'll somehow make me more respected if I own this particular product or whatever. It's an additional value beyond what the product itself does or the need it fulfills. And there's a promise attached to that. Then this has come along, and I'm sure lots of you are familiar with this term brand purpose. And brand purpose is something slightly different again. This implies that there should be some value, again, a different type of value attached to a brand, perhaps an ethical value, perhaps a societal value, even beyond brand promise, if you like. And often this is somehow engineered in a collaborative way with people, so they can engage with a particular brand slightly differently. So it also has purpose for the consumer, in the eyes of the consumer. What's interesting about these, and where we're getting to our worth, is what this means for the way businesses have worked over the years. So from products and services to brand promise is an inside-out way of working. This is people making stuff and trying to get it to the right target audience. Those immortal expressions like go to market, these are inside-out processes. And leaders in companies, senior executive teams and managers have been brought up on a diet of getting things from inside their businesses out to the right people. as effectively and through the best channels as they can and with the best advertising they can and so on. Let's get it to the right people for the best price and save as much cost and so on and so forth. Very inside out. Brand purpose is the start of a change. As soon as we start to collaborate with our end users, we're having to think partly inside out, but partly outside in, because we're starting to understand and collaborate more regarding their needs and so on and so forth. We're moving beyond that now, and there's no kind of official term for this. We think of it at the school as what we're calling value branding. Now, this is where everything has moved completely outside in. This is where smart organizations are trying to better understand ecosystems of value, be they in health or in mobility or retail or wherever that might be, and the way consumers work and the way society is going at the moment and technology, and saying because we understand this well, we can create new products and services to fit that. And that is a totally outside-in way of thinking. So our poor leaders of organizations that have been thinking inside out for years are suddenly having to rewire their brains and think, how can I bring stuff into my organization? Instead of being an enabler, I have to be a conduit. I have to funnel stuff into my organization so that I can work with it, I can collaborate with it in my organization and drive new and amazing innovations and disruptive products and services to feed that kind of system. And some of our well-known disruptive businesses in recent years, the Ubers and the Airbnbs and so on, are great examples of that. It's totally outside in the way it works. Now, within this is the start of our opportunity, we believe, at the school in particular, and certainly many organizations are starting to focus on. This inside-out world, where's my arrow? The inside-out world that was around for a while, this is the world of consultancies. This is where McKinsey and Accenture and all those companies have been happy for years. This is optimization. This is tuning our processes to get those products out to our clients really effectively. Saving cost, driving revenue, getting better at it year by year, et cetera, et cetera. And historically it was quite slow, this process of optimization, because that paid consultancy days. It was a nice way of doing business. The longer it took and the more you optimized incrementally, the more you could charge for your consultants to do it. So this was the world of the traditional consultancies. As things are turning outside in, and we're having to work from a less process-driven, a more kind of holistic perspective that is driven by an understanding of community, of society, of consumers, et cetera, this is your world, assuming nobody from McKinsey or Accenture is in the room. This is your world. Okay, this is where you're familiar, this is where you're comfortable, this is where you have the kind of feelers out there and you can orchestrate these different components. So if we're going to work outside in, I believe you are much better placed than the McKinseys and the Accentures, and that's why they're hiring so many of you. You are much better placed to work this ecosystem than they are. Okay? There are a couple of challenges, though, for you to be able to do that effectively, okay? But this is the big opportunity. This is the melons coming to the surface in Fernando's story, okay? How can we work effectively as creative organizations supporting this new outside-in way of working? In a way, finally, you can be paid for creativity. There are three things you need to do if you're going to work really effectively in this space. The first thing is you've got to have the techniques and the tools and the language to be able to sit at the same table with clients. If you're going to operate in this filter-out world with sitting in front of C-level executives who want to see that big fat number on the first slide, you have to have the basic capability to be able to sit at the table. Okay, those tools and techniques to demonstrate your credibility, because that's what they're looking for, to show you understand their business, and so on. And that's why some creative organizations are hiring consultants, because they can manage that interface. The second thing you have to do, and this is, I believe, one of the huge kind of byproducts of doing this, and the creative organizations we're working with custom programs, helping them on this journey at the moment, tell us that finally, working like this is breaking down the old traditional silos. Everybody in your organization is a creative because they're driving creative business solutions. Okay, in that sense. It's not just our planners and our strategists and our copywriters and our creatives, and only our creatives are creative. Okay, you're all in the same boat. And this is a mindset that's required in order to be really effective in this space. And finally, the third piece of the puzzle is you need to be able to create a different value proposition that you can take to your client. So if we're helping organizations on this journey to start supporting their clients more as kind of creative consultants, as trusted advisors, these are the three areas we really need to focus on in order to make that happen. Once we accept that, there's one final area you need to think about. If there is a burning platform to do this that's driving the Googles and the Facebooks to move into the space, would you believe, I don't know whether any of you were at Cannes 2 years ago, I heard Professor Scott Galloway stand up on stage and say in the first 6 months of the year to June at Cannes, 4,960 creatives from traditional agencies had joined Facebook and Google in 6 months, and 11 had gone the other way. There's a massive migration of creative talent to the tech companies in that case. Okay, so how strong is the fire? How much do you want it? Working around the world with creative organizations, we see an enormous cross-section. We see organizations in complete denial to organizations totally stripping themselves back and reinventing themselves for a new way of working. So the other factor you're always going to have to deal with is if you're going to go for this new way of working, just like your clients have, they're having to re-engineer themselves, is the topic of change itself as an industry for your organization, for you as people. Okay, how willing are you to change? Are you to go on this new journey? And there are three factors at play. One is, in our experience, in most cases, it's not the working the new way, it's the letting go of the old that's harder. So many of the organizations we work are locked into this old way of working and faithfully believe that it will continue to carry them through this new era. Okay, so it's the letting go piece. How much are you prepared to let go? Thinking back to what I started with at the beginning, with authenticity and adaptability, you will never let go of your total authentic you as an organization, your DNA, but how much are you prepared to adapt to this new situation? How much will you commit to it? Either to commit to resist or commit to make it happen. If you're in denial, how much? If you're going to make this happen, how much are you going to make this happen? And finally, the people that you work with and your clients have personal prerequisites in order to allow this change to happen. There are certain things you need to do in order for this new way of working to embed itself and so on. So let's look at the first one. The first one for me is the most interesting, and we use this a lot in a lot of aspects of the work we cover. I hope you find that if you remember anything from what I've talked to you about, remember this one, because it's quite a useful little self-reflection tool as much as anything else. It looks at how much we resist or commit at times of organizational or personal change. And it's a scale of energy, okay? It goes from -5 to +5. -5 and +5 are the same level of energy. They're total. So -5 is all of your energy to resist something happening, +5 is all of your energy to make it happen. Okay, and I'm going to go through them quickly because I'm running out of time. Oops, sorry. I think, oh, it's not animated. Okay, I'll talk you through it. My animation's disappeared since I loaded this up. So starting at -5, the one at the bottom is war. Okay? This is when you would go to war to stop something happening. It's total. It's finite. All of your energy committed to block something. We are not going to change as an organization. It's a fundamental, total level of resistance. Most of you will never ever do this in your lives because you're sacrificing all of your energy elsewhere. This is a total commitment of every piece of energy you have to resist something. This is life or death. So fortunately, most of us will never ever do this. So the next one, -4, is more interesting for us. It's less energy, but it's still very strong to resist. And this is when you would go to battle rather than war. You're prepared to go out and commit yourself. It's not total, but you'll go to battle to resist something, to block it, to get in the way, to stop it happening. Most of us will probably do this at some stage in our life with something that's incredibly personal to us, incredibly emotionally connected, and so on and so forth. So battle's an important one. We don't see this in business very often, but you might do. -3, less energy. This is active resistance, okay? So active resistance, actually, for us as creative leaders in our organizations and so on, is not too bad, because active resistance is visible, it's in the open, it's spoken, but it's not a huge amount of energy. So for us as leaders or with our colleagues, we can see where it is, we know who's doing it, and we can act accordingly and mitigate and so on. And we see quite a bit of active resistance to new ways of working in the organizations we're working with and so on regarding this type of change. So -2 is less energy, but more dangerous. -2 is passive resistance, okay? Passive resistance, the problem with it is, where's it coming from? Who's doing it? Who's blocking? I'm trying to engender this new way of working in my organization, in my team, to become more consultative, to understand my client better, and it's just not moving. Somebody's getting in the way or blocking. They're still in denial or whatever the reason is. So passive resistance is dangerous for us. It's less energy, but more dangerous. It's also dangerous because it mutates. It's like a virus. And if you leave it unchecked, it will turn to -1, which is less energy still, and that's apathy. And apathy is incredibly dangerous. People are amazingly unproductive. They're fearful, often uncertain, surprisingly strong emotions, and you have no idea where to start. If your industry or your organization or your team is apathetic, God help us. It's a really difficult thing to deal with, even though it's a small amount of energy. So moving to the positive, when we're working to make this new stuff happening, what are we really having to deal with? So +1. +1 is passive interest, okay? The more senior workshops, board level meetings I moderate or facilitate, the more I see of this. Sometimes conferences as well. This is when, some poor middle manager is presenting at the end of the long boardroom table with a big bunch of senior guys, and the guy at the end's on his mobile phone checking his emails while this poor guy's presenting. And it's like, yeah, great, fantastic. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, brilliant. He's there physically, but he's not there in his mind. He's passively interested. There's nothing in his language saying he's going to make anything happen at all. Okay, so passive interest is a complete waste of time. Don't be fooled. +2, more energy to make this happen, but more dangerous, interestingly, because this is now active interest. So this is declared interest. This is your team meeting next week when you come back from this festival and you've had some amazing ideas, and you sit down with your team and you say, let's do this next month. This is great, I love it. And they all go, yeah, fantastic. And then next week, everyone's doing exactly the same thing as they were. Nothing's changed. This is just active interest. But it's more dangerous for us trying to affect change and drive change in businesses and so on because we think it's real and it's not. And people are burning energy totally unproductively. So +3 is an important one. +3, we hope would be better because people are burning more energy, but it's actually still tricky. This is I'll try. So if any of you have done those New Year resolutions, in January when I'm going to try and go to the gym this year. or I'll try and give up smoking. As soon as you use the word try, you're building in the capacity for failure. It's become a nice to have the moment you say it. You're not really going to burn energy to make this happen. And it has other interesting characteristics. I'll try, if any of you have done those diets and gone off your diet after a few months, you kind of feel guilty as well, because you've burned a lot of energy with no real chance of success. You wasted energy pointlessly. The other thing with I'll try that is interesting is that it changes over time. Who's got kids in the audience? Quick show of hands. A few of you have got kids. What's the kind of thing you say to your little toddler when they run in their first race at school? They're about to start the race, they're really nervous on a sports day. Parents often say to their kids, just try your best. It doesn't matter whether you win or not. It's about trying. Just try, and if you give it your best, that's fine. And we say that to encourage them. But then, when your 16-year-old comes back and he's failed his exams dismally, and he says, well, I tried, what do you say? Trying's not good enough. You have to succeed, etc., etc. So somewhere in the teenage years, it changes. And certainly you can't stand in front of your boss at the end of the year at your appraisal and say, well, I tried. What more do you want? There is an expectation that we'll succeed. But still, you've built in this potential for failure. If you're looking in the mirror in the morning and you're saying, I'm going to try and make this happen, then it's not really going to happen. So the next one, sorry, I keep thinking my words are there. So the next one, +4, is qualified commitment. Okay, qualified commitment is where we put lots of energy into making things happen, and we will only do that if we qualify the situation. We put things in place so that we're prepared to commit so much energy. I have the support of my boss, I understand what's needed, I know the direction we're going in, I've got enough budget, I'm going to make this happen. You qualify it because you don't want to burn that energy senselessly. Okay, so great creative leaders know how to qualify the environments of the people that work for them to get the best out of them. Okay, +5 is total commitment. Okay, you will very, very rarely do it. Okay, if at all. It's all of your energy, nothing left for family, hobbies, any other stuff. Totally committed to make something happen. So this is something you really have to think about. And this is the reality of working with trying to drive new ways of working. You will have people making choices on this scale on a day-to-day basis, and you need strategies and mechanisms in place to help with that. So I'm just going to rush quickly through the rest because they're making faces at me now. Some of those qualifications that are required are the personal. I need to know what it's about, why I should do it, how I can do it, do I have the skills, and will it keep happening? These are the personal basics I need to make change happen. It's no good driving these kind of changes top down in your organization and telling people they have to become creative consultants. It's not going to happen. You have to work on a much more intuitive, empathetic basis, and these are the fundamentals of human nature at times of change. If any of these are missing, I won't change. It's as simple as that. And also, you need to know the history, because this is the letting go part. So if we work with all of these three things, potentially we can operate effectively in this space. Finally, I just want to show you, just very quickly, a company that I came across recently that we're working with in Sao Paulo that's doing this at the moment. Okay, this is a little Brazilian consulting company called Horizon Consulting in Sao Paulo. They're a creative organization. They're a bunch of guys, design thinkers, consultants, creatives, teams of 7 or 8 they pull together for projects, and they do amazing creative business consulting. This is what you could be doing, in effect. And they are just knocking doors down in Latin America at the moment. What they produce for their client, they do a 2-month engagement typically. They scan an entire organization in a human-centric way, outside in, like I was describing earlier. So they look at the whole value chain, driven from the consumer through the customer contact points back into the organization itself. They identify all the potential barriers to innovation, human and technical, within the organization, and then present back to the client at the end of this engagement. The way they present back is the following. They produce these amazing posters of the client organization they've worked with, a system map, as they call it. This is one for a big financial organization that shows on these schematics all of those potential different systems within the organizations where innovations could take place and where barriers are blocking effectiveness within the organization. So they present back this amazing poster. They also give them a kind of beautiful coffee table book of all of the innovations that they've identified on this map, right down to screenshots of apps and so on, beautifully presented in a glossy book. And then finally, there's another of their system maps, so there's workshop output captured and so on. Finally, they present it back in a really creative way to their client. So in this case here, this was for a connected car project. So they came up with a kind of board game presentation that identified all the blocking areas, all the potential innovations the client could work with, and the different ways of achieving them. This was for a credit card organization. They had the potential problems coming out of one end of the machines. Out of the other end of the machines were the various innovations they were recommending. And every time they do this, they hand this over, they walk away. 2 weeks later, the phone goes, and the client's on the phone wanting them to deliver these various innovations and so on within the organization. This is amazingly compelling creative consulting. And this, I think, is the future of much of the work we'll be doing in the future, is going right back to that circle at the beginning, giving our clients compelling reasons to act because we're trusted advisors. This gives amazing, compelling reasons to act in an incredibly creative way. Okay, so I think my time's up. Thanks very much for listening. If anybody wants to chat to me further, I'll be around during the day, or come and find me at the end of this session. I'm running 2 workshops later today, one on this kind of topic, going into more detail. I think it's still possible to join those, and one on personal branding. How do you sell yourself? What's your personal worth, if that's of any interest to you? So thanks very much. Hope you have a great day.